Hi, this is Karen, and my Horizon report was the significant challenges impeding technology adoption in K through 12 education. It was part of Unit 4, and the section that I found interesting was the segment that talked a little bit about authentic learning experiences. And basically, it was just talking about how authentic learning experiences prepare students for outside of just the classroom. And a lot of ways that school districts are doing that is they're partnering with businesses and universities, and they're tying in their education, their learning with directly with real world careers. Now, there are 5 obstacles that the article talks about that impedes that authentic learning. And one was that the curriculum is too hard to teach. Number 2, sometimes teachers teach to the test. Number 3, sometimes the schedules are too confined and teachers don't have that flexibility. Number 4, there are some educators that are so traditional that they don't want to think outside of the box. And number 5, there are a lot of policies in place where districts pay more attention on achievement rather than growth. So the article mentioned how there's no need for districts to try to recreate the wheel. They could just use models that are already out there. For example, in Sydney, Australia, they already have learners that are doing this. And so there's a community of teachers who have a toolbox rather, and they have embedded resources, websites, all of those things that other teachers could access and not have to, like I said, not have to reinvent the wheel. The ITSE standard that I found to apply to this was 3.8, and it just talks about how teachers, how their collaboration could inspire students to make authentic contributions beyond the classroom.
Okay, thank you, Karen. I can connect with your topic. We had junior achievement last year, and it was in my language arts class, and she would come in the morning before my morning class would switch with my partner, and her focus was economics. And it was an Exxon representative, an engineer from Exxon who represented herself to my class for about, I want to say it was like maybe about 6 sessions. And I really enjoyed it. I actually had her come towards the end of the day, so she was able to hit in social studies with economics, and then I would feed off of that. And whatever she taught them, I would align assignments based on what she taught them. So
right.
They had a double dip.
Awesome way to have that, incorporate that authentic learning.
Yes.
Who's next?
And I think that flows naturally into what I read about. So in my Horizon article, they divided it into long-term, mid-term, and short-term things that will roll out inside of the schools. And so one of the long-term, or 2 of the long-term topics that it discussed was rethinking how school works and moving more towards authentic learning, and also like design learning, where kids design actual things that present how they have learned a topic or either learned through design. They also talked about redesigning the learning space. And I know in A-Leaf we're really big on that. And personally in my classroom I am. They even talked about changing the seats to where they're more flexible learning, and how the environments should contain furniture that's movable and incorporate authentic technology, opportunities for the students. So I thought that was really interesting, especially because in A-Leaf we do, a lot of us get to see that play out, because we have action-based learning classrooms with flexible seating, where the kids get to get up and move around and aren't assigned to a certain seat all day. And I think that just aligned with the ITSE standard 4 and the substandards A, B, C, and D. In B, they use the word that the educator is co-learning with the student, and I like that, because the educator is learning alongside the student as opposed to just teaching. And then in C, they said it stated that you use collaborative tools to expand authentic real-world learning and experience by changing, by making it more engaging. And I just thought that was also aligned well with rethinking how school works and redesigning the learning space.
So Antoinette, I liked how you mentioned about the redesigning the learning space. I know at our campus, not a lot of our classrooms have redesigned our learning space, but in our library, where they go in and they do maker space, or they learn about different types of technology, they do have flexible seating in the library. And I've heard my kids talk about how they like going to the library because they're able to group themselves, and they kind of naturally gravitate, towards people where they work well together, and they know that they'll be able to experiment together, and that is just, a nice learning environment. So hopefully I'll be able to implement that in my classroom and get different types of chairs. Well, it's not actually chairs, but how they have like the little stools you can sit on. I'm hoping to purchase some of those for my classroom for this coming year. And so that actually flows into what I'm discussing. So my name is Michaela, and I'll be going over the collaborative learning, which was in Unit 5. This is a midterm trend that was discussed. Collaborative learning is also referred to as cooperative learning. What it is a group of students or a group of educators who are working together in a group, and it has to be peer-to-peer. So again, it can be students or it can be educators. In the article, they focused on 4 principles. The first principle is learner at the center. So just meaning that the learner is doing the work. They're able to take charge of their own learning, and the educator just facilitating. The second one is emphasizing interaction. So this means that students have to be able to communicate with one another and talk to one another, and it develops their social skills. The third one is working in groups, as I said before. And then the fourth one is developing solutions to real problems. I know in ALEAF, we make an emphasis on being able to pull out those real world learning examples so that students are able to relate to what they're learning, and they're more engaged when they're able to relate, and they retain information better. One of the examples that they mentioned in the article was in the Asia Pacific, they have a competition that is called the Tournament of Minds, and it focuses on students who are working together, and they give them, I think they said it's the STEM principles, but the students have to work together to solve a problem without adult supervision. So they're evaluated on how well they're able to collaborate and do that. And something I forgot to mention is that collaborative learning is based on the perspective that learning is a social construct. So the social part of it is huge. One of the drawbacks to collaborative learning, it says that students who are more introverted, or even educators who are more introverted, it might be a strain on them to always have to be in a group and communicating with others all the time. So the issue standards that this went with, I thought, for educators is 6C, which is facilitator. It says create learning opportunities that challenge students to use design process and computational thinking to innovate and solve problems. So what those students are doing in the Asia Pacific, I feel like that's a great example of using computational thinking and solving problems. And then for students, the issue standard is 7A, which is a global collaborator. A big part of collaborative learning is also being able to collaborate with students who are in a different culture, and being able to understand those students' perspective, and just get a different perspective. And it also mentioned that a way to do this is to use the WhatsApp app, which is free. And so that would be an awesome way to be able to video conference with students and educators in other parts of the world and get their perspective.
Michaela, thank you for sharing that. I really like the way the article just mentions how it's not the traditional setting anymore, where the teacher is in the front of the room and students are confined to their seats, sitting in rows. It's more or less like the teachers are the guide on the side and not just the center of attention. So it's changing the role of the teacher. And I really like the fact that students could be self-directed. They could take communication, they could take ownership for their own learning through those social communication opportunities. And then I was thinking that maybe perhaps for those students who are introverted, perhaps they could communicate a little bit more comfortably through digital means. So just a thought, but thank you for sharing.
Okay. So I'm Diane Delgado, and I did mine on Unit 5. My readings was short-term trends on coding as a literacy. And just to define coding, coding refers to a set of rules that computers understand and take the form of many languages. Some of the languages that the article explained was HTML, JavaScript, and PHP. Some of the to learn coding, it's a combination of deep computer science knowledge with creativity and problem solving. According to code.org, they project by 2020, there should be about 1.4 million computating jobs, but only about 400,000 will be filled. So there is a need for this field, for children to learn this field, to understand coding and to practice it in the school system. So that way more of these jobs will be filled. To better prepare the students at a young age, because there's such a need for it, many school leaders and technology specialists are embedding coding into the K-12 curriculum. Some of the students' programs that they're creating, these children are creating like websites, educational games, and designing solutions. Other friendly tools that a lot of the children are using that will help with having them understand and build coding would be using programs like Raspberry Pi, Scratch, and Lego NXT. After reviewing the ITSE standards, I concluded that the best ones for this topic would be for innovative designer. A, know and use a deliberate design process for generating ideas, testing theories, creating innovative artifacts, or solving authentic problems. And 5, computational thinker. B, collect data or identify relevant data sets, use digital tools to analyze them, and represent data in various ways to facilitate problem solving and decision making. Thank you.
And just to comment on what you just talked about, Diane, in my class this year, the last school year, I taught 2nd grade, and one of our TEKs is procedural text. So the kids have to read something and make something or build something. And in the years past, I've always done something like make lemonade or do something hands-on. But this school year, I wanted to incorporate technology. So we got Makey Makey, and we had to follow the procedural text in Makey Makey to code something. Now, when it got creative, when they were able to, so you can tie Makey Makey. Makey Makey is just like a plug and play. So you kind of plug it into the computer, and then it takes over the control of like the enter key, the space bar key of your computer, and you use that. But then you can go on the Scratch website and actually code that to code like a little, like they have cats on there or dogs on there. So when you press buttons on the Makey Makey board, then it'll do things that you have coded the computer to do. So it was kind of funny because some of them even coded my computer to do things, or they went on Go Noodle and found like little clips of music. So when they wanted it to play something, it would play something from Go Noodle. So it was very interesting to see how 2nd graders could take that on and do it on their own. So that was something very interesting.
Yes, this article actually brought me to want to learn more about coding.
And Makey Makey is really inexpensive. I think that's why I was able to persuade my teacher, like my principal and the other teachers at our school, to like get on board with Makey Makey, because it's very inexpensive. And then Scratch was free for us to use.
Oh, that's good. Good to know.
Well, I think that's about it.
Okay.
From group.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Bye, ladies.
Thank you.